Hello and welcome to the Humans of Growth podcast, where we talk all about the stories and strategies behind business growth and development. I'm your host, Aly Hathcock, and today we are breaking down why executives must lead and show up like creators, and how human-first storytelling, shifting buyer expectation, and the collapse of faceless marketing are forcing brands to rethink trust, visibility, and communications in the AI era. Let's dive in. Today's guest is Doug Longenecker. Doug is the CEO at NKST. NKST helps businesses grow by giving them direct access to experienced marketers, strategists, creatives, everybody in between without the slow layers of massive agencies. They bring together everything from data and strategy to storytelling, design, and AI to help brands just like you stand out. Doug, welcome to the show.
Hey, Aly, thanks for having me. Happy to be here and looking forward to a great conversation.
Absolutely. So, Doug, I introduced the professional side of you, but in a sentence or two, who are you as a human? What's bringing you joy right now?
Yeah, great question to kick things off and throw off the guest. But I think I got this. I think one of the things that from a personal, but as an entrepreneur, personal and professional life blends together a lot. But the common thread for that for me is having a really healthy, maybe overly healthy curiosity about things and how things work and how things don't work. And when they don't work, trying to find the solution to making them work or work better. So that's kind of that part of it. And then what brings me joy is really I have two college age daughters, and just seeing them continuing along their progression of growth and learning and stretching bands further than they thought they could. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But just being around to see them grow beyond, toddlers, elementary school, high school, to starting to get out on their own has just been really great.
Ooh, I love it. So you mentioned things not working. What's the problem you're working on right now and trying to solve?
I'm sorry, what was that?
So you mentioned curiosity and things not working or working. What are you seeing that's not working that you're trying to solve right now?
Personally or professionally?
Whichever feels fun to you.
Yeah. Personally, there's always room for personal growth and development. So that's been a project, I think, this year, just trying to dig deeper within and pull some things out and go places that maybe I've not felt that comfortable in the past doing. And, being a guest on a podcast is one of those things.
Oh, I love it. Am I your first podcast episode that you've ever been on?
I've been on two other ones. Okay. One like 5 years ago, and it was not a conversation like this. This was a guy who was just in it. He was monetizing it, so he was probably cranking through 20 in a day. There was never any follow-up questions or discussion. It was like question, answer, question, answer, question, answer.
Oh,
so that was my first foray into it. But again, that was 5 years ago, and that's what some people were doing.
Yeah, I've seen that as a business development strategy. What do you see? Okay, I know we're going to talk about thought leadership in a second, but when it comes to marketing, you've been in the industry for a while. What have you seen that used to work that's not working anymore?
Well, there's lots of things. I'm pretty old, so. But having said that, like anything else, and especially in fashion, what goes around comes around. So a lot of things you wouldn't think would work anymore. But outdoor is something that was kind of like left for dead for a long time, and that's seen a resurgence. Not that we're doing a lot with it, but I do have friends in the business, and they are incredibly busy right now. So it's a great thing to see that kind of come back. And then the other thing you always hear of is the death of television and television advertising, and that seems to keep hanging around. It finds different ways to reinvent itself, and I think that's one of the cool things about any business, but particularly the industry that we're in with marketing and entertainment and media. It's really interesting to see how that channel is just continuing to rethink, reimagine, and keep coming out with new things to keep people engaged.
It continues to find ways to survive. Definitely not as we necessarily expected with like the slow, very painful death of cable.
Yeah.
But everything, it's like, okay, we just moved ads from cable and satellite now to Netflix, Hulu, Amazon.
Yeah, and which is just seeing the continuum that's been on, and as a consumer as well of media, to see how quickly and easily it is just to watch things without commercials, or if I'm on YouTube and there's a pre-roll, but you can get past it in 4 seconds. It's kind of like what's the point of doing that anymore?
Yep. And I think marketing has to some degree gotten harder because we're forced to watch ads, but we're becoming numb to them.
Yep. A lot of it's because it's so compressed. So how much can you say in 5 seconds that's going to be really compelling and interesting and entertaining and informative? It's almost impossible.
Yeah, and it's interesting that especially around Christmas time, a lot of the ads seem to blend together. Like they all kind of look the same. And what I've kind of noticed over the past year or two is that the ads, whether it's organic, whether it's paid, the ones that kind of stand out are human led. And usually a lot of times that's an executive from the C-suite or VP level who's coming and is in the ad themselves and talking like a normal human and not trying to feel like the traditional ads that we're used to.
Yeah. Well, are you familiar with a department store from the UK, John Lewis?
I've heard of it.
Yeah. So every year they have the most amazing holiday spot, and it's usually about 2 minutes long, and it's almost every single one of them is so emotionally and humanistic. I mean, it is about the products sometimes, but they're so subtle you might not even see them. But it's about the spirit of the holiday and the humanity that's wrapped around that, and it almost brings you to tears every time you see a new spot from them.
Wow.
So I encourage you and everybody else to go see.
So we will link that in the show. We'll find it on YouTube. We'll link it, a couple of them in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But having said that, I'm starting to see more U.S. marketers and brands during the holidays start to slide that way a little bit more.
I think it's like kind of rallying around the human spirit rather than the products.
Yes. And you want people to watch. And if it's just about the products or speeds and feeds of technology, at the end of the day, that's just not compelling. And I've sat through a lot of focus groups for IBM, and you talk to your target audience there, they'll tell you they're just concerned about speeds or feeds. But when you get into doing research and blind tests or just recall of ads, the ones that were recalled the most are not the speeds and feeds.
And that's why marketing has to switch, because what we've seen, and you've probably heard it too, there's a handful of companies that kind of control the United States, and every company that we buy from is a subsidiary of that. And all of these companies are to some degree very much brand focused and not people focused. And how do we focus on like the products and the services that we're offering and not the people behind the products and the services?
Yeah. Is so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going.
I'm going to say it's such an odd sort of position that they're in when you think about it, brand is developing. That's the extension of the business that starts to reach out and connect with people and get people to trust you and have a relevance in your life. So to keep skewing away from like the humanistic side of your product and the benefits or even the experience that people have with a product or a brand is just kind of strange.
Yeah, I think if you look at the marketing that happened in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, up until almost 2012, 2015, we could get away with faceless marketing, and corporations could, because it was based upon information. If we give people the right information, they will buy from us. That was kind of in the smaller like SMB space, the rise of like Russell Brunson and like let's just put people through the funnels with the right copywriting and you're good.
Yeah.
But now that we're, I think, at a space in the internet where we're oversaturated with information, whether that's on our phone, on our laptop, whether we're walking down the street and we're driving, we're oversaturated with information. We don't need any more information. We have a shortage of trust. And that's where the human element, and only the human element, can come into that process.
Yeah. Well, it just made me think of something too. It's not just the marketing or the branding where the human side is kind of lacking. Think about, you got the media consumption, but the purchasing process. Mm-hmm. It's becoming more and more devoid of human outreach, human contact. So I remember the first car I bought, it was amazing. We went to the dealership and the salesperson took my wife and I from the front bumper all the way back to the rear bumper, showing us the entire car. And wow. Part of that was because we were probably first time car buyers, but still.
And they knew it, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the way it used to be done. What I found out, the more people I talked to, I'm like, oh yeah, that was not that uncommon of a practice. Mm-hmm. But now when you go in, it's just to help get you through the transaction almost.
Yep, it's to facilitate the transaction. And I think people now walk into car lots, walk into Apple, walk into pick your store with XYZ high priced good, and they know what they're going to buy. Like if I walk into an Apple store, I know exactly what I'm getting there. I'm not I'm usually, okay, depends on which day of the week. Usually I'm not poking around questioning what I'm going to buy. And the same is true for like Best Buy or Staples or pick your non-grocery store. I know what I'm walking into. Any salespeople there, it's just, you're right, like you said, it's to facilitate the transaction and pretty much nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm assuming part of that is in the training that they go through or don't go through anymore. It's just the standard operating procedure has changed because of the way people consume information on the internet. And not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just different.
Yeah, and it's very much from what I'm seeing with marketing for like high-priced luxury goods. The marketing is now expected to get people from top of funnel to middle of funnel to bottom of funnel, all in whatever the time frame is. Whereas previously, marketing was generally top of funnel, and then your sales department would handle middle, bottom of funnel with the actual decision-making process. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure there'll
be a pendulum swings at some point, but who knows?
I'm looking forward to the pendulum swing. I think I've noticed that when I go to the grocery store now, assuming I'm not in a massive rush and there's not a line, I'm trying to go to the in-person, like the human checkout.
Yeah.
Because it's like we need the human stuff, and the AI that's getting incorporated into self-checkouts and how they are doing a lot of their theft protection is a little bit scary. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go the human route as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't get me started in the grocery store. There's a whole lot of cool stuff going on, and self-checkout is fine. It's just they're not set up to handle someone's weekly grocery.
No, content. There's not enough.
It's set up for like the speed lanes. So when you get backed up and everyone who's there is with your full week's worth of groceries trying to get self-checkout, that gets maddening.
Oh gosh, yes, and that's why we go to the grocery store on a Wednesday morning at like 7 a.m. when we can, to avoid all the people who can't go on the weekends. So one of the phrases that you had mentioned before we hit the record button was that as we want more humanistic marketing, executives need to lead like a creator, both internally and externally in terms of like marketing and sales. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's something it's probably more critical now than ever before, just because media is so pervasive in so many different channels and so many different platforms. Years ago, it wasn't. I don't want to say it wasn't that hard to get your message out, but there was a more defined and understood series of platforms that you'd want to get on, and now it's just. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to choose from and ways to do that, and you don't have to rely on media placements or traditional media, so to speak, to be able to get your voice heard as an executive or an executive team. So it's an exciting time in that regard. The one thing I think we've been kind of experiencing is not all executives really relish that opportunity to do that. And again, it's very understandable because you're putting yourself out there as an individual, as a leader of a company that's responsible for employees and customers. So it's not always the easiest thing to get executives to be, gung ho about. But at the end of the day, they do understand the necessity for it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit, let's go a little bit deeper into that. Tell me why executive visibility matters so much, especially when you're at a larger company.
Yeah. So if we're looking at an enterprise level, or let's say large mid-market to enterprise, the speed of business is really, really fast. So much faster than it was even 5 years ago. And a lot of that's accelerated due to different technology advances, and most notably artificial intelligence, and how that's moving from Gen AI to agentic AI to whatever comes next. And I know it has its fits and starts and it's overhyped, but that is really condensing timelines on business quite a bit, not only in sales cycles, but even in looking at sales on a quarterly basis, and sometimes not being able to look much further than that. So executives need to be really sharp and in tune with the market, with their customers, and also in tune with their employees. And you talked about visibility. I'm glad you mentioned both it's external and internal. And in some cases, the internal visibility is equally, if not more important than externally.
Yep. 100%. And so what do you see executives doing to create visibility for themselves?
Yeah. So there's lots of ways to do that. And we kind of look at it from, this is it's nothing that we've coined, but PESO. So it's an acronym for different types of media. So you've got paid media, earned media, shared media, and owned media. So there's lots of ways that an executive, or executive team, sometimes we work with teams, and it's interesting to work with teams in that regard, because now you've got multiple different layers and aspects of the company that is getting put forward. And that gives you, as a supplier or a customer, client, or even internally, it gives you a much more context and a contextual reality about the company and how it operates, and how it's working together, which comes back to kind of the humanity of things, and you can get to see a bit more humanness, so to speak. And in saying that, I think I lost track of what your original question was.
No, you were good. I was mesmerized by what you were saying, and I forgot the original question as well. So
then you can layer that in. So you start with individual interviews and group interviews, which if I'm saying that if we're doing that as the executive team, a group session is to help facilitate their understanding and make sure that they are all on the same page, because a lot of times they're not, and it's shocking. But they don't have these sessions where to make sure and check off to make we all got this, and this is the way we're moving forward. But then take that vision and mission for the company, and then how does that play out in each of those different roles in the C-suite, and then map that back to what they want to say, what's important. What they want to say, I guess, I got to take a step. What they want to say is important to them, but cast it in a light that is still shows importance and benefits to the audience.
Yeah. Do you see executives gravitating towards specific channels?
Some will. Let me say most probably will, because they have their own comfort level with certain channels. Within some of those platforms and channels, there might be specific programming that they know is more in tune with their audience in terms of customer base. So they might have a more narrow idea of where they want to be, but sometimes it could work out better if they're that narrow, but also expand, not everywhere, but expand a little bit beyond that, just to show the depth and breadth of the business and how it relates to different categories.
Cool. I love it. So you had said earlier, again, before we hit record, that the algorithm doesn't care about your title. And I love this because especially on LinkedIn, it feels like everybody's titles are just made up. We just create made up titles, and you look in people's headlines and they have like 50 different nouns listed up there. And it's like, okay, what do you do? And the algorithm, and like, yeah, it matters for like SEO purposes, but I don't really care what people's titles are. I care about what they're saying. Tell me more about the algorithm doesn't care about your title.
Yeah, well, it's with LinkedIn. So if we're talking about executive leadership, that's probably one of the primary channels. It's constantly changing, and it's hard to keep up with it at times. But right now, it really doesn't matter about your title. And actually, for that, I don't think it ever did. But the interesting about what LinkedIn is doing now is they are finally starting to reward the right behavior, because it used to be always talked about. It's not necessarily about the number of impressions or the vanity metrics. It's about engagement, but that's not what was rewarded. But they've changed the algorithm, so now engagement is actually a better way to get noticed than just putting out posts about different things. So how does one comment in a thoughtful, purposeful way as an executive on other people's posts? And that's a new wrinkle, and not a lot of executives are really in tune with that or want to do that. So when it used to be the other way around, it could be easier to craft a plan where we knew what the topics are, and you can develop posts in advance, and they'll just write it for them, and they'll put it out there, and there you go. But now it's not that easy, and for the most part, it's not easy because it's more time consuming, and executives don't have the time to be going through social media as much, and then being able to respond in a thoughtful, purposeful way. Not that they can't, but then you're always thinking, oh, is there something that I've said? It might be very smart and brilliant, but is there something that's going to trip other people up? That's very clear to me. And now we've got a kind of a media debacle on our hands.
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting and frustrating things about LinkedIn is that the algorithm really does reward you when you're commenting on other people's posts. But that takes a lot of time. If you're doing it on the fly, if you say the one wrong thing or leave out a word, you will get eaten alive.
Yeah.
And with LinkedIn, generally speaking, with a personal profile, you can schedule content, but you can't have other people log in as you. So you can't hire a VA or you have your marketing team like write comments to post on stuff, but you have to be the one to actually post it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's getting better, but it's getting harder depending on who you are and the amount of time that you would want to spend on social media. But it is still becoming a necessity, and I think as you get new layers of executives coming through who have grown up as digital natives and very much more accustomed to it. Not only just because I think everyone understands the value, but it's just. Some executives at this point in their career, it's not that important for them. It's not part of their daily lives or even daily work regimens.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that it's great if you can post every day. Quality matters more than quantity to some degree, but one of the things that has been helpful with when I write content for clients is to remind them it's like because you're just posting once a week or twice a week, you're still now in the top 1% of all of LinkedIn, because 99% of people on LinkedIn will never create a single piece of content.
Which is just, I guess
insane.
We're too into the community here, but it's hard to believe that's the percentages of that.
Yep. Compared to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, especially for executives in the B2B sector, it's not that hard to stand out necessarily. Now there's a lot that goes into like the algorithms and how many followers do you have and pick your other metric, but it's fun to be able to say it's like, okay, at least you're posting once a week. You're now in the top 1% of LinkedIn creators. And I don't know if you've seen this with your clients, but I'm seeing it more and more is people running thought leadership ads on LinkedIn so that when they do post, even if it's only once every couple
Mm-hmm.
weeks, they can at least increase that reach, even if they don't have a ton of followers, connections, you name it.
Yeah. Wow. No, I haven't seen that, but now that you mention it, hopefully I'll be even more accustomed to seeing it. Like it's
Yeah,
that
because
effect when you get a new car and then you see that brand of car everywhere.
yeah, absolutely. Because going back to what we were talking about originally with like people don't care about faceless brands and corporations, they care about people. We saw probably what you've probably seen with Facebook, Instagram, Facebook pages get less reach than ever before, creators more reach than ever before. Same thing on Instagram, same thing on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
So I think LinkedIn is kind of capitalized on that principle of like we need to be people forward, not company forward. And like LinkedIn company pages don't really get a ton of traction, just like Facebook, Instagram. But they've made it so that individual personal profiles can run ads using their profile so that
Mm-hmm.
you can go back to being people first, and humanity first.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point you brought up about the company sites and company pages in LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be just for me personally with our business. It was like, okay, um, sometimes my voice bleeds into the company page, and it was, who should be
Yep.
posting this, and now it's really evident just on the way the algorithms are working that it should be more on the founder or the executive team rather than the brand or the company itself.
Oh, 100%. And then it's like, okay, once you post it on the personal profile, just have the company page reshare it or repost it.
Yeah. Yep. So there's all sorts of
Hey guys, real quick, this episode is sponsored by Parison Network. Parison Network is a matchmaking service that connects businesses to marketing agencies that will actually get you results. There's over 50,000 agencies in the United States alone, and picking the right one can feel, well, pretty impossible. Parison Network simplifies the entire process by doing all of the vetting for you. From the initial agency search to interviewing and vetting the top marketing agencies to getting proposals and helping you with the discovery call, Parison Network does it all. This way, you will end up partnering with a marketing agency that actually delivers outcomes, not empty promises. If you're ready to stop wasting money on marketing that just doesn't work, visit ParisonNetwork.com and get your free agency search started today. That's ParisonNetwork.com, PERISSON network.com.
great little tricks to kind of get around the algorithm switches.
Yeah, it's one of those things where a lot of times marketers know that their executives need to be online, that they need to have an executive presence, but figuring out how to show the ROI can be difficult. What do you do in those sort of situations?
Well, that's an excellent question. In any form of PR and executive thought leadership, it's for the most part, it's going to be a challenge to not prove, but it's not like you can go in like when it's paid media and you say, okay, we're going to spend X amount of dollars. You're going to get X amount. We're expecting X amount of impressions. And those impressions should then result in some sort of conversion, whether it's back to a landing page and then eventually to a sale. And we work in a lot of the B2B space, so those transactions are 6 to 9 months in terms of sales. So we've got to lay the groundwork and help people executives and executive teams understand like this is a long game, and it's not a quick fix like an advertising campaign. This is something you've got to jump into for a minimum of 6 months to be able to start seeing anything start to happen, because it's not just LinkedIn. It's really developing mini media plans for each one of those executives that we are working with, and actively we develop messaging and storylines and narratives, but actively pitching those storylines, those executives to select media platforms and channels and outlets that are relevant to their story and to their audience. Then there's the whole other part of that is conference speaking and engagement at conferences. And again, there's no cookie cutter that we work with. There's just lots of different media options, but these are bespoke plans that make sense for that executive, their business, and their audience and their customers.
Yeah, and I think each time you add an executive and they start creating content or speaking at conferences, you're essentially adding another marketing channel, because you can't, multi-touch attribution is starting to slowly theoretically become a thing. The more channels you are on, the more reach you're going to get. And even if it's not 100% trackable, it is still contributing to your bottom line.
Yes. And that last touch attribute has been it's always bothered me to some degree.
Yeah.
Because even if we relate it back to like the brand does a big heavy lift at the top. If you didn't have that, your last touch attribution would probably be very different, or a lot less, or a lot lower.
Right. And I think, we've started seeing multi-touch attribution. If they went to Facebook, then they went to Instagram, then they heard them at a conference. I have my doubts as to how accurate that information actually is, because a lot of it's based upon, to some degree, skip tracing and big data, and it tracks back to IP addresses, which change depending on your location, what device you're on. It gets a lot more complicated and messy. So you kind of, to some degree, you have to trust the process and trust your marketing team.
Yeah, and as an executive, you will start to, there's things that they will experience that they might not think to relate back to us or even their teams. But from a speaking engagement, after that engagement, even at the show, they're going to have people reach out to them after that talk or that speech or that panel discussion. Right. And those are great touch points that you wouldn't have had any other way. There's also, in terms of other media, it's just not getting a quote or a soundbite for media, but pitching those stories or writing byline articles that can get placed in media outlets. Those all have an impact and an effect and I guess where I'm going with this is they're not just one-off events. You were talking about multi-touch or just other ways to extend and expand that particular program. So that conference speech, that's going to be able to be probably at least 3 different forms of content outreach, at least. Or if the company has done a big research initiative, and one of the executives, if not the CEO or president, signs on as a stakeholder for that particular research. It's not going to just dump and then that's it. You're going to release it, talk about it, but then we're going to drip things out from that make it kind of like a serial sort of content to get at least 6 months worth of activity out of it.
Yep. You take one speech, you get sliced and diced 1,000 different ways across 1,000 different platforms. And now you have all of your content for your executive presence for 3-6 months. Yep. And I think something that's important, especially when you're doing like conferences, sales are important, but sales are not the only thing that grow a business. You also have partnerships that come through. It also, having executive presence helps with all things HR and internal communications with employees, which also grows the company. So I'm curious to see what you've seen in terms of thought leadership, not just to grow sales, but in terms of partnerships as well as like internal communications, and what that could look like and what the ROI is going to look like for that.
Yeah, well, the ROI is going to vary, I think. Yeah, for every opportunity, every company. That's going to be. I can't speak to that definitively, but there is an ROI to that, and reaching out and developing different partnerships. And what was the other part of the question? Partnerships.
Tell me about like what you see in terms of thought leadership and how it affects internal communications as well as internal employee relations, company culture.
Yeah, in that regard, it's it goes across both, but credibility, visibility for the executive team, just so they're not all up in an ivory tower somewhere. Yeah. So even just to do a quarterly town hall meeting where your employees get an understanding of, hey, how's the company doing? What are we focusing on going forward? What's the vision moving forward, and how are we, how and what are we doing as a company, as employees, to help get us there and foster that direction? Then there's also relevance. If you're not visible, then you're not. It's like you're not even there as an executive. And that's the other. Employees, not that you have to know everyone by name, especially when you get to enterprise level, you can't. But you've got to make an effort to engage employees so they understand not only where the company's going, but they understand the value that they represent to the company.
Yeah, and I think you also need, to some degree, a person you can rally around. You can rally around ideas all day long, but sometimes it helps, especially when times are hard, to have a person that is visible, that you're like, okay, I'm trusting this person is leading this company in a direction that I agree with. Is important, because I've seen a decent number of companies where, and even not massive companies with 30, 40, 50, 60 head count, where when the CEO isn't visible and she disappears off the face of the earth, or he goes and becomes silent for 3 months, 6 months, employees start to get nervous. And that's not just for smaller businesses. That's true for mid-sized enterprise as well, is that when your C-suite and your VPs are quiet and silent, people get nervous. And when they get nervous, they start looking for other jobs.
Yeah, there's all sorts of fallout when employees get nervous. Even just the job they're doing, or just emotionally, that manifests itself in so many different ways that are detrimental to the outcomes of the business and the company.
Yeah,
sure.
It absolutely can destroy productivity, and I don't think enough C-suites and VPs are paying attention to how their presence affects the entire corporate ladder and entire corporate structure.
Yeah, and that's kind of the travesty of it all, because it's within them. They just need to let themselves or enable themselves to be able to bring that out. And it might be just as easy as sharing some little tidbits along the way. It doesn't have to be a whole new program or a whole new direction that the company is rolling out.
What do you see? So let's say we have an executive who says, we don't have tons of money to spend, but I want to start having some level of executive presence within my company. And that's also community facing as well. Where are 3 super easy places for them to start that are just low hanging fruit?
Yeah. So the first way we approach that is we want to have just a real good heart-to-heart conversation with them. Kind of, we can call it an audit or whatever, but it's really just kind of a heart-to-heart to see where they're really coming from, what challenges they've experienced in trying to do this before, if they have tried to do it before. What do they need to overcome to feel comfortable about doing that? And then also a bit of a 360. Once we get a sense of them, of what's troubling and what they don't think's working. That's one data point and one perspective, but we can talk to some other executives, or maybe even some employee surveys to understand where they feel things are lacking. So then we can see, okay, here's some great common threads. Here's some warning sign disconnects potentially. Hopefully you don't see that. But if you do, at least we're alerting, we're seeing it, and we're being able to alert and hopefully correct a problem. What they can do quickly is one of the things we were talking about earlier is, let's look at their LinkedIn. So how can we get them up to speed on LinkedIn? That's like an easy kind of, not easy necessarily, but a first level take on things, so we can get them more active there and visible on that platform. I mentioned earlier, if they're not doing it right now, they should look to be doing some sort of quarterly touch point with employees, whether it's a in-person town hall. Again, it depends on the size of the company, and that's a good way to start reaching out. And then within the context of that, or maybe some other mechanism, start to make themselves accessible to employees. So any problems or challenges that they have, and not that it's just a complaint box necessarily, but even so, let it be that. I remember one of my first jobs was in CBS owned and operated station in Philadelphia, and a new general manager came in, and that's the first thing that they did is they put up a suggestion box, and it sounds like really kind of hokey right now, but it helped them as being a new person in, and not being from Philadelphia, that has its own
some culture
potential.
shock.
Yeah. But they wanted to understand like what was breaking down, like why did the other person leave? Why am I being brought in? They understood that to some degree, but let's hear it from the rank and file people of the station. So that was a big step. I thought that was very impressionable for me as a young employee.
I love it. And I think that kind of notes that executive presence doesn't just have to be VPs, C-suites. That's kind of the obvious, but it can also go throughout the entire corporate structure, from managers, directors, senior directors, everybody in between. It's essentially, if you have people reporting to you, you should have some level of visibility somewhere.
Yeah. Yep. And you would hope, but that's not always the case, but some level of autonomy to kind of like deal with your people or the people that report to you in some way.
Absolutely. So thought leadership and helping executives kind of create a thought leadership presence is just a little bit of what you guys do. You also have a dynamic performance network that kind of spans a lot of different things. This is just one pillar of it. Big picture, we're going to go into this later in a couple of episodes from now. All of more of what that encompasses. Can you kind of give us a little bit of a taste, a sneak peek of how this kind of plays into the bigger picture?
Yeah, for sure. So the DPN, as you were mentioning, that's really the system that we have instituted with Next, and it pulls together 4 to 5 different levers for growth, depending how you look at it. But looking at it from a continuum of business strategy all the way through to communications and creative output, and generating different outcomes for different objectives. But it looks specifically at data and AI, and that's kind of on the front end of how companies need to be not only just developing programs and new workflows, but even governance models. So we serve as an advisory capacity regarding data and AI. And that's been important to me, because when I did work on IBM, I was working with DB2, helped launch that, and understood that DB2 would be nothing without the data that it sits on top of. So data is critical to every organization. AI just is making it in some degrees, a lot easier, a lot faster to manipulate and organize and understand from a business intelligence standpoint what's going on within your business and with your customers. And that's a really whole other area that I'm very excited about. But that kind of runs through, and then you've got customer experience and employee experience. They go hand in hand, and there's a through line with data and AI in that portion. Which then, when you talk about customer experience and employee experience, you can't really do that without talking about brand positioning and brand differentiation, and how is the customer or how's the employee living up to that differentiation, so your customer is walking away from different touch points along their journey with that same feeling, which then gets into digital marketing aspect of things. And also part of the brand is what we talked about today with executive thought leadership. So it's looked at it in a total system. It gets me very excited, because that through line of just really helping to generate visibility, trust, relevance, and commercial viability or commercial business for a brand and a company is really exciting. Having said that, you don't have to do the whole system, because you might have a lot of them covered already, but we just need help with executive thought leadership, and we can plug and play wherever we're needed most, really.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the cool things about you guys is because usually what you see with marketing agencies is that they help with getting you new clients, getting you new customers, retaining them, like upsells, downsells, continuing to make purchases. But you guys are a little bit more integrated, a little bit more holistic and comprehensive of like, it's not just getting the customer to come buy from you again and again, but how do we keep that customer feeling good about what they're buying? And
Mm-hmm.
then also the employee experience side. You don't see a lot of marketing communication agencies focus on the employee experience, and that is so crucial to the growth of a company. Because if
Yeah.
your employees aren't happy, you're fucked.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
better lack of
Yep.
terminology, like you're if you have high employee retention, you kind of cap to some degree your growth potential.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because we do see how all these components and elements are related to one another, and too many companies are working them in the silos
Yep,
that they are, and
exactly.
really what that leads to, which is one of the according to Gartner, it is the largest problem and challenge for growth is fragmented execution, going from strategy to execution, and the fragmentation that's represented in that nowadays, mainly
Yeah.
because of siloed thinking and
That's
approaches.
the other thing. And the more integrated you can get all of your teams and cross functional you can make those teams, the better the entire company grows.
Yeah, yeah. So we love to jump in and help the company orchestrate the all the components together as much as possible.
I love it. Doug, thank you so much for coming on this show today. If
Yeah,
people want to connect with you, which of course they're going to want to, what's the best way for them to find you?
probably just email would be the quickest. Well, LinkedIn would be the easiest and probably quickest. Email is doug.l at what's next. Next is nkst.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. For everyone tuning in today, thank you so much for joining, and we will catch you on the next episode of Humans of Growth.
All right. Thanks for having me, Hallie.